There's a gentle saying that goes, some battles aren't meant to be won through fighting. They're won when we choose to walk away, whole, unbroken. Have you ever found yourself lying in bed at night, quietly replaying a conversation in your mind, wishing you had responded with more calm, more grace, more clarity? That moment when someone said something unfair and you snapped, or stayed quiet and regretted it. The pounding in your chest, the storm of words. We've all been there. You're not alone. In today's world, reaction has become a habit, almost a compulsion. Someone posts a rude comment and we jump to respond. A colleague makes a snide remark and our pride flares up. A loved one misunderstands us and we rush to defend ourselves loudly, emotionally, desperately. But after all that, most of the time, it leaves us even more drained, more confused, more distant from the peace we were unknowingly craving. Now imagine this instead. You're in the same situation, provoked, challenged, insulted. But this time, you don't react. You don't take the bait. You don't defend, explain, or retaliate. You simply observe. You allow the moment to pass like a gust of wind that stirs nothing within you. And in doing so, you remain intact, powerful, free. This, my friend, is not weakness. This is mastery. At Mindful Healing, we believe the most profound transformations begin not with grand gestures, but with quiet shifts in awareness. And one of the most radical, life-changing shifts you can make is learning how to not react. Today, we're diving into the ancient yet timeless wisdom of Buddhism, not as dogma, but as a lens that will help you reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and rise above the chaos of modern conflict. You'll discover why reaction is often a trap disguised as justice, how silence can disarm even the most volatile situation, what Buddhist monks know about anger that modern psychology is just beginning to understand, and how you can train your mind to become unshakable. This is not about avoiding life. It's about showing up with such stillness, such clarity, that chaos loses its grip on you. So if you've ever felt emotionally hijacked, exhausted by drama, or stuck in the endless need to explain yourself, this message is for you. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand the power of ignoring, you'll feel it in your bones. You'll see how sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is to do nothing at all. Take a deep breath, because what you're about to learn may just become your greatest source of peace. Part 2, the modern conflict trap. Why we fight even when we don't want to. It starts small, a passive-aggressive comment during lunch, a misinterpreted message online, a glance that felt off. Before you know it, your heart races, your mind crafts comebacks, your chest tightens, you're suddenly in it. An argument, a defense, a battle for who's right and who's wrong. But here's the truth few of us pause to ask. Why are we so quick to react? Why do we fall into conflict so easily, even when we don't want to? The answer is simple, but painful. Because we've been trained to. Because reacting has become normal. From childhood, we're taught that silence equals weakness. That if someone challenges us, we must respond. That dignity is defended, not preserved. In schools, debates are rewarded. In families, who speaks louder gets heard. Online, the more controversial your opinion, the more attention you get. So now we live in a world where the loudest voice seems like the strongest one. But let me ask you this. Has shouting ever brought you peace? Has winning an argument ever made you feel truly understood? Most conflicts we face today aren't about truth. They're about ego. They're about control, validation, and emotional baggage being projected onto anyone who happens to be nearby. Think about the last time someone lashed out at you. Were they really trying to understand you? Or were they just trying to release their own pain? We've become so entangled in this web of reactive living that we've forgotten a very basic truth from Buddhist philosophy. Just because someone throws a stone doesn't mean you have to catch it. And yet, catch it we do. Because we've developed an identity around being heard, being right, being respected. The ego whispers, if you don't respond, you've lost. And we believe it. But what if that whisper was lying? The cost of constant reaction. Here's something you may not have considered. Every time you react, you're spending energy. And I'm not talking about metaphorical energy. I'm talking about every time someone criticizes you and you react, withdrawal. Every time you argue with your partner over something that doesn't even matter, withdrawal. Every time you explain yourself to someone who's not even listening, withdrawal. At some point, your peace account hits zero, and that's when life feels heavy, joyless, chaotic. A world addicted to reaction. Now more than ever, we live in an environment designed to trigger us. Scroll through social media. What do you see? Opinions, outrage, call-outs, debates. Every post is bait, every comment a spark. The digital world thrives on your reaction, and sadly, so does much of the real one. But here's the paradox. The more you react, the less control you actually have. Because in that moment, you're no longer responding consciously, you're just being pulled by emotional momentum. It's like being a puppet whose strings are held by the next insult, the next provocation, the next misunderstanding. Most of the things we react to don't even matter an hour later, let alone a day, a month, or a lifetime from now. In Buddhist teachings, this automatic tendency to react is seen as a form of ignorance, not in a judgmental way, but in a compassionate one. It's the ignorance of not seeing clearly. Not seeing that your peace is more precious than your pride. Not seeing that reacting gives away your power. Not seeing that silence can be louder than any word spoken in anger. One of the core insights of Buddhism, the modern world tells you to react. Buddhism invites you to observe. The world tells you to win. The Dharma reminds you, sometimes the one who walks away is the one who wins the most. You don't need to live your life defending yourself from everyone who misunderstands you. You don't need to win every debate to be valid. You don't need to react just because you are triggered. This isn't suppression. It's evolution. It's reclaiming your energy from the endless trap of modern conflict. So let me ask you, how many of your worst days started with a reaction? How many beautiful moments have been tainted because you had to have the last word? What could happen if you chose stillness instead? Stay with me, because in the next section, we'll go even deeper. You'll begin to see how ego drives most of our conflicts, and how freeing it is when you no longer feel the need to protect yourself from words. Because the truth is, when nothing within you is disturbed, nothing outside you can shake you. The ego's endless game. The inner war we mistake for strength. The urge to defend, to correct, to prove yourself. But what if I told you what you're defending isn't even you? It's your ego. What is ego, really? In Buddhist philosophy, the ego isn't just arrogance. It's not about being boastful or full of yourself. It's deeper than that. The ego is the false self, the mental construct we build over time. It's who we think we are based on our memories, achievements, opinions, roles, and beliefs. It says things like, I'm a good person, I shouldn't be disrespected. I'm right, and they're wrong. If they disagree with me, they don't value me. So every time someone challenges one of those identities, the ego flares up in defense. Not because you're in danger, but because your self-image is. Here's the trap. The ego feeds on reaction. It thrives on drama. It lives for that surge of emotion when you're trying to prove you're right. It doesn't care about peace, it only cares about being validated. A mirror, not a battle. Buddha once taught that conflict is a mirror, not a battlefield. Meaning, most arguments aren't really about the subject at hand. They're reflections of insecurity, fear, pain, and the deep need to be seen. So when someone says you're wrong, you hear, you're not smart. When they say, that doesn't make sense, you hear, you're not valuable. But here's the thing, they never said that, your ego did. The moment we attach our self-worth to being understood, we become prisoners to every opinion around us. And there is no peace in that place. The endless game. The ego is never satisfied. Win an argument today, it'll want to win another tomorrow. Get praised today, it'll expect the same tomorrow. Feel heard today, it'll feel offended the moment someone stops listening. It's a bottomless pit. And the more we play its game, the more exhausted we become. You may win the debate, silence your opponent, get the final word. But what have you really gained? A small moment of emotional victory at the cost of your inner silence. I remember a client of mine, David, a high-level executive who always felt the need to prove his intelligence. Every meeting was a battlefield. Every disagreement, a challenge to his worth. He would leave work every day angry, drained, and strangely insecure. When we traced the root of this, we discovered something powerful. His father used to criticize him constantly as a child. So now, every challenge at work activated that old wound. His ego wasn't protecting him, it was reliving a trauma. We began practicing mindfulness, journaling his reactions, pausing before speaking. Slowly, he stopped reacting to every jab, and over time, he found peace, not by changing his coworkers, but by no longer needing their approval. That's the freedom beyond ego. So what's the alternative? If ego thrives on being right, then true strength lives in being still. Not passive, not weak, but aware. Here's a simple practice from Buddhist insight. Before reacting, ask yourself, am I speaking from love or from fear? Will this response bring me closer to peace or farther from it? What part of me is being threatened, and is it even real? Sometimes the most powerful response is to not need one. You are not your opinion. Let this sink in. You are not your thoughts. You are not your beliefs. You are not your need to be right. You are the awareness behind all of that. And when you begin to rest in that awareness, arguments lose their grip on you because you no longer feel like you have something to defend. Part 5, Lessons from the Dharma, Timeless Buddhist Wisdom. The Dharma Buddhist teachings was not meant to be locked away in monasteries or reserved for scholars in saffron robes. It was offered for the world, for you, for me, for anyone seeking to suffer less, and over 2,500 years later, these teachings remain stunningly relevant, not because the world hasn't changed, but because the human mind hasn't. We're still Oshu, the noble truth of suffering, and Daolan begins within. Buddhism starts not with promises of paradise, but with truth. Life contains suffering. Not always dramatic suffering, sometimes it's subtle. The anxiety of not being understood, the tension of holding back your opinion, the sting of a snide remark that lingers for days. This truth isn't meant to depress us. It's meant to wake us up. Because when we understand that suffering often starts in the mind, not the world, we stop trying to control everything outside of us. We begin to ask different questions. Why does that comment bother me so much? What belief is being threatened here? Is this about them or about me? That's the shift from blame to awareness, and that's where liberation begins. 2. Attachment is the root of reaction. Buddha said the root of suffering is attachment. We're not just attached to things, we're attached to opinions, to being right, to being respected, to the version of ourselves we want others to see. So when someone disagrees, we feel shaken. Because they're not just questioning our ideas, they're threatening our identity. But what if we could release that grip? What if someone disagreed with you and you felt nothing but curiosity? That's not detachment in the cold sense. That's spaciousness. It's the inner freedom that arises when you no longer need others to agree in order to feel whole. 3. The power of wise silence. There's a beautiful teaching in the Sutta Nipata where the Buddha is asked, how do we recognize a wise person? His answer? They are silent when silence is better. They speak when speech is useful. Let that sink in. Not everyone who is silent is wise, but everyone who is wise knows when to speak. Imagine how many conflicts could be avoided if we pause to ask ourselves, is what I'm about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This ancient framework, truth, necessity, kindness, is stunningly relevant in today's digital world where people argue for sport and opinions fly like arrows. Every comment doesn't need your reply. Every attack doesn't require a defense. Sometimes your peaceful presence is your loudest response, or the middle way between passivity and aggression. Non-reaction does not mean becoming passive, voiceless, or emotionally numb. Buddhism teaches the middle way, a path between extremes. This means not lashing out in anger, but also not avoiding necessary truth. Not becoming cold, but also not letting emotions hijack your clarity. It's about discernment, not detachment. It's the wisdom to know when silence heals and when words liberate. Sometimes choosing not to engage in conflict is the wisest act of compassion. Other times, standing firm, without rage, is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others. 5. Mindfulness, the bridge between stimulus and response. In the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha outlines the practice of mindfulness as the cornerstone of liberation. Why? Because mindfulness creates space. Between the moment someone says something hurtful and the moment you respond, there is a sacred gap. In that gap lies everything. It's in that space where you choose to escalate or de-escalate, to repeat old patterns or break them, to defend your ego or protect your peace. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. And that space, when cultivated through mindfulness, becomes your power. 6. Right effort, training the mind like a muscle. Let's be real, non-reaction isn't easy. It goes against every reflex we've built over decades. But in Buddhism, transformation isn't about perfection, it's about practice. The concept of right effort teaches us to train the mind just as we would a muscle. Not forcefully, but consistently, patiently, with compassion. Each time you pause before reacting, you're planting a seed. Each time you breathe instead of bite back, you're watering that seed. And over time, a garden of calm begins to grow. This is not blind avoidance. This is the slow, steady rise of inner mastery. 7. Karma. Every reaction has a ripple. Buddhism teaches that every action, every word, even every thought has a consequence. This isn't punishment, it's pattern. When you respond with anger, you strengthen anger. When you respond with clarity, you strengthen peace. So when someone tries to provoke you and you remain still, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're changing your karma. You're breaking cycles within yourself and in the lives of everyone around you. This is why Buddhist masters don't fight back, not because they're afraid, but because they understand. Peace creates peace. Reaction creates reaction. You choose the ripple. Integrating the Dharma into daily life. Let's be honest, life will keep testing you. There will always be someone who misunderstands your intentions, someone who questions your worth, someone who pushes your emotional buttons, but every moment is an invitation, a chance to return to breath, to return to awareness, to choose peace over pride, clarity over chaos, stillness over reaction. And slowly you become the kind of person who no longer needs to prove anything, because your peace speaks louder than your words ever could. Part 6, the silent warrior, how stillness becomes strength. When you think of strength, what image comes to mind? Muscles flexing, voices raised, a powerful figure standing tall, unshakable in the face of a storm. What if I told you there was another kind of strength, one that doesn't shout, one that doesn't strike back, one that doesn't even need to be seen? It's the strength of a silent warrior, and it may be the most powerful force you'll ever develop. Stillness is not emptiness. Let's clear something up. Stillness is not weakness. It is not apathy. It is not numbness or giving up. True stillness is charged with awareness. It is not empty. It's full of presence. Imagine a mountain. Wind may roar around it, rain may fall, thunder may strike, but the mountain remains still. Not because it's indifferent, but because it knows its place. Its strength comes not from movement, but from rootedness. You too can become that mountain. The warrior who doesn't swing back. Buddhism often speaks of the peaceful warrior, not someone who conquers others, but someone who has conquered themselves. Here's a lesson that's often overlooked. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. There's incredible restraint in not reacting when insulted. There's profound courage in not defending yourself when misunderstood. There's deep wisdom in staying silent, not because you're afraid, but because you've chosen your peace over your pride. Let me tell you, this isn't easy. It takes discipline. It takes self-awareness, and it takes a level of self-trust that few ever cultivate. But when you do, it changes everything. What makes the silent warrior powerful? They know when to speak. A silent warrior doesn't stay silent out of fear. They speak when their words have purpose, not to win, but to serve truth. They don't need validation. They don't argue to prove worth. They don't perform to earn respect. Their self-esteem is no longer rented out to the approval of others. They respond, not react. They feel anger, yes, but they don't become it. They feel fear, but they don't let it guide them. They create a pause. And in that pause, they reclaim power. They master the art of detachment. They are deeply engaged with life, but not entangled in it. They listen, they care, they connect without losing their center. A story from the temple, the bowl and the water. One of my favorite teachings from a Zen master came during a silent retreat. He held up a bowl of clear water. Then he stirred it vigorously. "This is your mind when you react," he said. "Even if the water was pure, no one can see through it now." Then he placed the bowl down and waited. A minute passed, then another. Slowly the ripples faded, the water stilled, and the reflection became clear again. "This," he whispered, "is what happens when the silent warrior chooses stillness over reaction. You don't need to fix the chaos immediately. You just need to stop stirring the bowl." The power that doesn't need to prove itself. There's a story about a king who ruled with wisdom and compassion. One day, a traveler insulted him in front of his court. The ministers waited for the king's fury, but instead, the king smiled and remained silent. Later, a young guard asked, "Why did you let that man speak to you that way?" The king replied, "If a man throws mud at the sun does not become dirty. It only shows how dirty the man's hands are." This is the energy of the silent warrior. Unaffected, unafraid, unmoved. Not because they can't respond, but because they've outgrown the need to. From defense to radiance. The truth is, most of our defenses are built on the belief that we are fragile, that someone else's opinion can harm us, that if we don't fight back, we'll be seen as weak. But what if you're already whole? What if your silence doesn't make you invisible but invincible? What if stillness isn't a pause but a statement that your peace is sacred, that your energy is not up for auction, that your center cannot be moved because someone else's storm? This is how the silent warrior lives. Not in denial, not in suppression, but in clarity, becoming the silent warrior. You don't become this overnight, but every time you pause instead of react, every time you choose breath over battle, every time you let a moment pass without needing to win it, you take one more step toward becoming that kind of warrior. It's not about silence for silence's sake. It's about silence that speaks volumes. It's about becoming so rooted in your truth that no wind can shake you, so grounded in your presence that no voice can destabilize you. And from that place, you live, you lead, you love, in full power and full peace. Part 7, the psychology behind reaction. Why we get hooked and how to break free. Let's get honest. Have you ever known you shouldn't react but still did? You told yourself you'd stay calm, but your heart started racing, your face flushed, your hands clenched, and before you could stop yourself, you were in the middle of another argument, another rant, another moment you later regretted. Why does this happen? Even when we know what's wise, we often fail to choose it. That's not because we're broken, it's because we're wired for it. But the good news is, what's wired can be rewired. The biology of a reaction. At the core of every reactive moment lies your nervous system. When you feel threatened, emotionally, verbally, socially, your brain detects danger. And it kicks off a very old system, the fight or flight response. This process is automatic. It's rooted in your amygdala, the primitive part of your brain that prioritizes survival. It doesn't know the difference between a tiger in the jungle and someone disagreeing with your opinion on Twitter. To the amygdala, it all feels like danger. And when it senses that threat, it hijacks your calm, rational mind, the prefrontal cortex, and rushes in with adrenaline, shallow breathing, racing thoughts, the irresistible urge to react. But here's the catch. Most of the time, what we're reacting to isn't the present moment, it's the past. Emotional baggage and old wounds. Buddhism teaches that our suffering is not always caused by what's happening now, but by the stories we carry. Let's say someone criticizes you. You feel hurt, not just by their words, but by the meaning your mind assigns to them. I'm not good enough. They don't respect me. I'm being attacked. Where do these beliefs come from? Usually they're rooted in old emotional wounds. A parent who constantly criticized you, a teacher who silenced your voice, a past partner who made you feel invisible. So when someone pushes that same button in the present, the pain is amplified. You're not just reacting to this person, you're reacting to all the people who hurt you before them. This is what trauma-sensitive Buddhist teachers refer to as second darts. The first dart versus the second dart. In the Salatha Sutta, the Buddha described two kinds of pain. The first dart is the unavoidable pain of life. Someone says something mean, it stings. That's natural. The second dart is the suffering we add to that pain. The rumination, the anger, the retaliation. The story that says, I'm always disrespected, no one values me, I'll never be enough. The first dart is life. The second dart is optional, and most of our suffering comes not from the event, but from the second dart. Why we keep getting hooked? Modern psychology uses a term for this, emotional hijacking. It means your body responds before your conscious mind has time to reflect. You get hooked into the emotion, and your behavior follows. You react without thinking. You regret after. Sound familiar? What's important here is not to shame yourself for reacting. It's to develop the tools to pause and intervene before that emotional wave becomes a tidal flood. How to break free. Practical tools. Here's where Buddhist wisdom meets neuroscience. 1. Name it to tame it. When a trigger hits, pause and name what you're feeling. This is anger. This is shame. This is fear. By labeling the emotion, you activate your prefrontal cortex, your rational brain. This instantly creates space between you and the emotion. Instead of being swept away by the storm, you become the one watching the weather. 2. Ground in the body. The body holds the score. Use your breath. Inhale deeply for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale slowly for 6 to 8 seconds. This calms your nervous system, signaling to your brain, I'm safe now. Try grounding techniques. Feel your feet on the floor. Touch something cold, a glass, a metal object. Place your hand on your chest and breathe. This helps anchor you in the now, not the past. 3. Delay the response. Say it silently. I'll respond in 10 minutes. Let me think about that. I don't need to answer right now. Even just 60 seconds of pause can interrupt the chain reaction. The space between impulse and response is where freedom lives. 4. Observe the ego. Ask yourself, what part of me is feeling attacked? Is this my wounded inner child, my pride, my fear? Once you see the ego clearly, you stop letting it drive. It's not about killing the ego. It's about seeing it with compassion and choosing not to obey it. 5. Reframe the moment. Instead of asking, how could they say that? Try, what pain are they carrying that made them act this way? This doesn't excuse poor behavior, but it shifts you from victim to observer. Compassion for others begins when we stop taking everything personally. The Buddhist approach, responding with wisdom. In the Buddhist view, reacting without mindfulness only strengthens the habit of suffering. But when you meet the trigger with awareness, you weaken that habit. Each time you pause, you're not repressing, you're rewiring, you're building new neural pathways, new habits of patience, clarity, and grounded strength. And slowly you become someone who no longer gets pulled into every emotional vortex. Imagine this. Imagine a day where someone criticizes you and you smile gently instead of defending. A friend forgets to text back and you feel peace, not panic. A stranger's rudeness rolls off you like water off a lotus leaf. You don't become cold, you become clear, unaffected, not because you're hardened, but because you're healed. This is what's possible when you understand the psychology of your reaction and gently, consistently break free from it. Part 8, non-reaction as daily practice, building emotional strength. One pause at a time. Understanding the power of non-reaction is one thing. Living it is another. We've all felt that post-meditation glow or that insight after a great talk or video. But then life happens. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A colleague sends a passive-aggressive email. Your partner says that thing again, and boom, the fire's back. The pause is gone. The reaction takes over. So how do we take this beautiful wisdom and bring it into the grocery store, into family dinners, into our Monday mornings? Let's explore how non-reaction can become your daily emotional fitness. One breath, one pause, one moment at a time. Non-reaction is a skill, not a trait. Many people think, I'm just not a calm person. I react too quickly. I was born this way. But that's a myth. Non-reaction is not about having a certain temperament. It's a trained ability, like learning to swim or play guitar. Some people may be naturally more patient, but anyone can learn to be still, to pause, to choose response over reaction. The question is, are you practicing or are you simply wishing? It all starts with the pause. In Buddhist meditation, the pause is sacred. It's the split second between thought and action, between emotion and behavior, between urge and choice. Training that pause is like building a muscle. Every time you catch yourself before reacting, even for 1 second, you've just lifted emotional weights. Here's a simple mantra to remember. Don't speak from the heat. Wait for the clarity. Daily practices to build non-reaction. Let's go practical. These are tools you can weave into your daily routine to build a habit of calm presence. 1. Mindful mornings. Set your tone before the world does. The first 30 minutes of your day create the emotional tone for everything that follows. Instead of reaching for your phone, try 5 minutes of breath-focused meditation. Journaling your intention. Today, I will respond with awareness. Reciting a grounding phrase like, "Nothing outside me can take away my peace." This isn't just spiritual fluff, it's mental programming. You're literally priming your brain to stay calm before it meets chaos. 2. Label the trigger. Throughout the day, when something stirs emotion, say internally, "This is irritation. This is judgment. This is ego being poked." Why? Because when you name it, you detach from it. You are no longer the emotion. You become the one who is witnessing the emotion. 3. Create sacred pauses. Build intentional breaks into your routine. Before replying to emails, before entering your home that after work, before difficult conversations, you can even silently say, pause, breathe, choose. Let this become your daily mantra. Simple, quiet, transformational. 4. Evening reflection. The calm debrief. At the end of the day, ask yourself, when did I react today? What was I protecting? What would I do differently next time? This is not self-criticism, it's inner training. Think of it like an athlete reviewing game footage. You're studying the mind with compassion, not blame. Over time, this builds a powerful awareness loop. And with awareness comes choice. Bonus practices from Buddhist monks modernized. Want to deepen your practice further? Try these time-tested techniques made modern. Empty bowl meditation. Each morning, sit silently and imagine yourself as an empty bowl. Say quietly, I am not here to collect praise or criticism. I am here to stay open. This imagery helps you start the day without attachment to outcome, free from needing to react. Fire watching. Practice when you feel triggered, close your eyes and visualize the emotion as a fire rising in the body. Watch it, don't fan it, don't run from it. Just say, this is fire. I am not the fire. I am the one watching it burn out. Most fires burn out quickly when they're not fed. So do most emotions. The stillness journal. Every night, write down one moment you didn't react and how that felt. One moment you did react and what you learned. Over time, you'll see patterns, and patterns reveal power. The one pause promise. Here's a commitment you can make today. I promise to pause once today, just once, before I react. That's it. Not perfection, not silence all day, just one moment. Maybe it's at work, maybe with your child, maybe with yourself, and tomorrow you do it again. This is how the inner warrior grows, not in leaps, but in quiet, steady steps. The cumulative effect, small pauses, big peace. What happens when you make non-reaction a daily habit? You start sleeping better. Your conversations get calmer. You stop over-explaining yourself. People begin to feel safer around you. Most importantly, you feel safer inside yourself. Why? Because you no longer fear your own emotions. You've learned to hold space for them without letting them run the show. This is real power. This is mature peace. And it's available to you, not in theory, but in every moment you choose to pause. Part 9, the peace that changes everything. Let's take a deep breath right here, right now. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. Now feel this moment. The stillness, the space, the simplicity of now, because this is the very peace you've been chasing. Not in someone else's approval, not in being right, not in the last word or the loudest voice, but right here, inside you, the real victory. So much of life is spent trying to win the argument, win the respect, win the attention, win the validation. But the truth is, you win nothing when you lose your peace. The greatest victory is not domination, it's liberation. Liberation from the compulsion to react. Liberation from the burden of being understood by everyone. Liberation from the exhausting need to prove, defend, explain. Real strength doesn't roar, it radiates. Like the still lake that reflects the sky. Like the tree that bends with the wind, yet never breaks. Like the monk who smiles through insult, not out of pride, but from peace. You are the mountain. Remember the teaching we touched on earlier? The wind can stir up dust, but it cannot move a mountain. You are that mountain. You can choose to be moved by every comment, every slight, every wave of emotion. Or you can root yourself deeper into presence, into awareness, into the peace that no one can take away from you. Not because you ignore the world, but because you transcend its chaos. This is not detachment. This is not apathy. This is maturity, clarity, wisdom. What you've learned. Let's reflect on the seeds we've planted together. You've seen that reaction is often the echo of your ego, not your truth. You've learned how mindfulness creates space between trigger and choice. You've witnessed how stillness, when practiced daily, becomes a superpower. You've discovered that even one breath, one pause, can change your entire day. And most importantly, you've remembered what Buddhism has whispered for 2,500 years. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the calm, steady awareness behind them all. Imagine a different world. What would life be like if more people practiced this? If leaders responded with wisdom instead of ego? If couples paused before shouting? If strangers on the internet chose silence over spite? If you, yes, you became a source of peace in every room you enter? That's not idealism. That's a movement. And it begins with you. Because every moment you choose not to react, you send a ripple into the world. A ripple of stillness, of groundedness, of quiet strength. And those ripples add up. They become waves, they become change. The journey continues. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. The beginning of a new relationship with yourself, with your emotions, with the world. A relationship rooted in choice, not compulsion, in presence, not pressure, in calm, not chaos. And yes, you'll stumble. Yes, you'll still react sometimes, but now you know the way back. Back to the breath, back to the pause, back to the peace that was never lost, only forgotten. You don't need to fight your way to peace. You just need to remember that peace has been inside you all along, a question to carry with you. As we close, I leave you with one simple, powerful question. Is this worth my peace? Ask it every day. Ask it in conflict. Ask it in doubt. Ask it before you speak, before you argue, before you react. Let it be your compass. Let it protect your energy. Let it bring you back to what truly matters. Because the truth is, not everything deserves your attention, but your peace, it deserves everything. Your next step, if this message resonated with you, I invite you to live it, not just like it. Practice the pause. Start small, breathe often, choose wisely. And if someone you love struggles with conflict, tension, or emotional overwhelm, share this with them. Let's build a world where stillness is strength and presence is power. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'm honored to be a part of your journey. And until next time, keep breathing, keep pausing, keep healing. Part 10, Peace Practices to Take With You. You've come a long way, not just through the words of this video, but through your own inner landscape, pausing, questioning, feeling, remembering. But wisdom only transforms when it becomes habit, when it moves from your screen into your breath, from your head into your heart, from your heart into your life. That's what this final section is about. Daily peace practices, small, simple, sacred. You don't need hours of meditation. You don't need to escape to a mountain. You just need presence and intention. Let's build your peace toolkit together. 1. The morning grounding ritual, 5 minutes. Before the world gets a chance to shape your energy, you shape it first. Step 1. Sit up and when touching the grounds. Step 2. Place one hand on your heart, one on your belly. Step 3. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. Step 4. Say silently, today I will not give my peace to what does not deserve it, Just 5 minutes can reset your nervous system and set the tone for the entire day. 2. The one pause practice. Once a day, just once, when you feel triggered, pause. Not forever, not to suppress, just for a breath. Silently ask, what's rising in me right now? Is this reaction or response? What would peace choose? Then proceed or don't. That moment of awareness is the win. Over time, one pause becomes 2, then 10, then a lifetime of freedom. 3. Evening reflection, the journal of stillness. Every night, take 3 to 5 minutes to answer these 3 prompts. When did I choose peace today? When did I get pulled into reaction? What can I do differently tomorrow? No shame, no guilt, just quiet witnessing. The mind learns through gentle review, not harsh judgment. Your journal becomes a mirror and eventually a map. 4. Digital detox moments. Technology is a major source of reactive behavior. Choose 1 to 2 time blocks per day to go digitally silent. No notifications, no emails, no scrolling, just presence. Even 30 minutes of digital stillness can help reset your nervous system. It reminds you that your worth doesn't depend on constant interaction. Use that space to walk, breathe, sip tea, stare at the sky, do nothing, and rediscover everything. 5. The "Is this worth my peace?" check-in. Keep this phrase near you. Is this worth my peace? Put it on your phone wallpaper, as a sticky note on your desk, as a reminder that pops up midday. Before you respond, ask it. Before you defend, ask it. Before you explain yourself to someone who doesn't listen, ask it. It's one of the most powerful inner filters you can build. 6. The walking meditation. Turn everyday walks into mindfulness training. As you walk, match your steps with your breath. Observe your surroundings without judging. Feel your feet grounding you to the earth. Whisper silently, I am here. I am calm. I walk with peace. Even 10 minutes of walking like this per day builds inner weight, a center of gravity the world can't shake. 7. The pause before you speak. Practice this ancient Buddhist question, filter before speaking. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If the answer is no to any of the 3, maybe silence is wiser. This one tool alone can transform your relationships, your leadership, and your emotional clarity. 8. Create a peace anchor, an object, a mantra, a gesture, something small that brings you back to stillness. Examples: a bracelet you touch when you're triggered, a mala bead you carry in your pocket, a short mantra you whisper when overwhelmed. Peace is my home. No one can take my stillness. Let it become your sacred symbol, a grounding thread back to your calm self. Final reflection. Who are you becoming? You are not just learning how to not react. You are becoming someone who no longer needs to. This is not about silence. It's about sovereignty. It's about reclaiming your attention, your emotional energy, your presence. It's about becoming a calm center in a chaotic world. That's what real power looks like in this era. Not who shouts louder, but who remains rooted. And that's who you are becoming. One pause at a time, one breath at a time, one peaceful moment at a time. From here forward, you now have a path, not just a philosophy, not just inspiration, but real tools, real practices, real presence. Keep them close, live with them fully, and let your life be the message. Because in the end, peace is not the absence of noise. It's the stillness that lives within you, no matter what's happening around you. And that kind of peace changes everything. Thank you for being here and for choosing the path of awareness. If this full journey brought you insight or clarity, I invite you to share it, to practice it, and to return to it whenever life feels loud. From all of us at Mindful Healing, may your path be steady, may your breath be deep, and may your stillness guide you home. Namaste.